The Metropolitan Police are having a real bad run of bad luck recently, what with everything they touch literally turning to dog poo. Along with daily bad publicity due to dodgy plots, they have been forced to cease proceedings against several women who attended the Sarah Everard vigil due to the police basically screwing up and not getting anything right when it came to COVID regulations, which is why the women were taken to court in the first place. Well, they have now been dealt another blow, as yet another case the Met were pursuing relating to COVID breaches has collapsed into a big pile of heartache, shame and despair. On November the 28th, 2020, during the second government house arrest, a group of pensioner activists from Devon boarded a coach and headed to central London to a Unite for Freedom protest being held in Trafalgar Square, organised by Piers Corbyn. Upon spotting the coach full of blue rinsers, an easy target for any copper, they were pulled over by the Metropolitan Police in their operation to prevent anybody from reaching central London to join the protest because they can, and nothing to do with the fact that our right to protest had been curtailed. Oh no, wait, the last Met court failure proved that it wasn't the case, didn't it? Anyway, seeing the opportunity to bully some old folk, the Metropolitan Police prosecuted 8 pensioners for breaching COVID restrictions by participating in a gathering of more than 2 people in a public place. Although, as far as I'm aware, the inside of a vehicle is classed as a private place, which is why police can get done for trespassing if they enter your car or reach into your car without good reason. But anyway, the Metropolitan Police issued the 8 blue rinsers with notices and took to prosecuting these dangerous individuals. However, after the last case of the Sarah Everard vigil attendees being halted by the Crown Prosecution Service after a so-called review, this latest attempt by the Met to assert their authority over us unlawfully has also now been stopped by the CPS. Now, don't go patting the CPS on the back just yet. Remember, it was them who would have had to authorise taking these 8 to court to prosecute them in the first place. And I think this is simply a reaction to the vigil prosecution being overturned by the High Court, as I imagine there will be others to come in the future. As I've just said, it was the High Court judges that determined that the vigil attendees had their human rights breached by the Metropolitan Police after they concluded the Met had misapplied the COVID laws and failed to consider the human rights of free speech and assembly. On the 28th of November 2020, 2 private hire coaches from Dorset were stopped at Hillingdon Underground Station, with one sent back to Bournemouth, and the occupants of the second, including elderly passengers, locked in an apparent 3-hour standoff with police. Officer Gareth Gilbert told Westminster Magistrates Court he told the coach party their purpose was a breach of the regulations and that participating in the gathering was also unlawful, as he directed them to go home. He said, "I was met with heckling and my voice was drowned out by the crowd." Can you imagine a load of blue rinsers absolutely slating a copper? I wonder what a sight that would have been. He added, "On reflection, the incident took approximately 3 hours to complete. I was aware that I kept the public at the location for a protracted time and I had to balance this against checking their details and potentially unlawful arrests and how they would travel back to Bournemouth safely in a pandemic. At one point, everyone on the coach was going to be arrested, 50 people. Therefore, 9 arrests and everyone else going home safely was best outcome I could achieve." Can you imagine the reaction by his buddies in blue back at the station if he'd managed to arrest all 50 pensioners? I mean, that's promotion material right there, especially if he got to manhandle them and cuff them too. I mean, I bet his face was on the front page of the police's internal newsletter the following week for his bravery. The judge found that although the organiser of the protests that they were heading to, Piers Corbyn, had broken regulations at other demonstrations, the police's approach to the November the 28th event had been wrong. A chief superintendent had decided that any gathering on that day would not be lawful and told organisers anyone participating in a protest gathering today will be committing an offence. The judge said this was an incorrect interpretation of the law, prejudging the actions of protesters and blocking Corbyn and others from attempting to lawfully exercise their right to protest. So yet again, we have the police misinterpreting the law, although they and the bootlickers will argue that it was, something new and they had never had those powers before and that mistakes were bound to have happened. But I'm sure they wouldn't be saying that if it was them who had had their rights breached. But it's okay to slag off other people and praise the police for their wrong interpretation over so-called regulations that hardly made a blind bit of difference in the grand scheme of things anyway. I mean, what a joke the Metropolitan Police have now become. Serial rapists, murderers, violent offenders and fucking idiots. Is there anybody in the Metropolitan Police who can actually do the job without fucking it up?